Hey everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my Higurashi When They Cry Let's Play. Today we'll be recording episode 33. So last episode was an interesting one for sure. A lot of it was like kind of slow, like build up, but I think it was kind of important build up. And it kind of, I mean, it picked up right there at the end, right with Rika suddenly turning to Akasaka and warning him to return to Tokyo. And so we're gonna see if he heeds that warning. Spoiler: he won't. Um, Especially because he feels like a connection with Rika now. I feel like he probably feels the need to investigate what's going on in Hinamizawa, as well as, in his eyes, probably saving Rika from whatever was going on there. Right? He seemed to think it was some kind of possession. I think that theory is possible. Not gonna bank on it too hard just yet. I think it's possible though, because it was a sudden demeanor shift, and she genuinely didn't seem to know what happened, right? And I guess maybe she's just there's always the chance that she's always been this manipulative, um, or like incredibly manipulative, and is just playing him like a fiddle. But I don't know. There's you got to consider that chance that she's like 7 years old, probably, right? She might not have exactly been a master of manipulation back then. So I don't know. It like yeah, I don't think he's gonna leave though. That's the point. And so we're gonna see what he can learn by spending presumably more time in Hinamizawa. And I mean, we know he's gonna escape with his life, whether he follows that advice or not. Or well, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe something funky could be up, but like we see him in the future, like a flash forward, basically, right? So unless this game gets even crazier than I'm expecting, there's no way he's going to die, right? Um, but again, just some more interesting setup, right? It's like I said, just interesting setup. I'm looking forward to where they bring it this chapter. So let's go ahead and load back in and see exactly what they're going to do with that. Let's just jump right in. So this is probably going to be his report. The phone suddenly rang. I woke up in a hurry. The clock read 9 p.m.
しまった。定時連絡の時間を寝過ごした。
I picked up the receiver.
赤坂様、外線からお電話が入っておりますが、おつなぎしてもよろしいでしょうか。ご同僚の加納様と申されております。
I knew it. I didn't call in, so they had phoned me.
すみません。つないでください。
かしこまりました。おつなぎしますので、一度受話器を置いてお待ちください。
After I'd put down the receiver for a few seconds, the phone began to ring again.
はい、もしもし。赤坂です。
赤坂くん、加納です。お疲れ様。定時連絡がなかったので、こちらからかけました。そちらの状況はどう？
Leaving the lecture for later, my senior coworker got straight to the point.
今日は、ひなみざ村へ実島に行きました。観光客を装うことで、村長以下の何人かの主同盟の要人との接触に成功。何も聞き出すには至りませんでしたが、好印象を得て、明日以降へのつなぎを作ることができました。
そう、なかなか手際がいいね。
Yeah, sort of.
赤坂くんのどこか初々しい感じが、むしろ武器になったのかもしれないね。まずは上守備ってところかな。
Is he not going to report the really glaringly, like, bad news or, like, creepy news that should probably be reported regarding Rika?
比較するほど経験がないので、上守備かはわかりませんが、とりあえず、今日のところは順調だと思います。
県警での情報や地元警察の公安での情報と照らしてどう？鬼ヶ淵死守同盟は白っぽい？
I still didn't know. Should have been able to say that immediately. I only had to say that, but for some reason, I hesitated.
まだ調査中ですので、なんとも。
そう、なるべく早めにね。分かってると思うけど、今夜が終われば、誘拐から丸4日が経過する。いつが時間切れという明白な区切りはないけど、時間の経過は確実に我々の状況を不利にしていく。
The longer this takes, the more time for the grandpa to capitulate to the demands.
それは分かってるよね。
I think that's the word I'm looking for. Capitulate? Is that the word I'm looking for? Basically, I mean, like, fold to the demands, like, listen. Capitulate. Cease to resist an opponent or an unwelcome demand. Surrender. Okay, so, I had the right word.
ええ、分かっています。迅速に。だけれど、細心の注意で調査を続けます。
うん。くれぐれも気をつけてね。相手は暴力主義団体なんだから。油断すれば危険もあり得るからね。
Bro, you're probably being wiretapped straight up.
危険が迫ったらすぐに連絡を。その場合は地元公安に応援体制を入れられるようにするからね。
ありがとうございます。頑張ります。
他に赤坂くんの方から連絡はある？
I reported several bits of supplementary information, and at the very end, I decided to ask.
そちらの調査の進展はどうですか？
うん。こっちもみんな頑張ってるけど、なかなかはかどらないよ。何しろ、調べる団体が星の数だからね。だから、君の方の団体も白だと分かったらすぐに帰郷して、他の職員の応援に入ってもらいたいんだよ。室長は、鬼ヶ淵も洗っとけって言ってるけど、俺は鬼ヶ淵なんかの反ダム住民団体なんかは、今回の件、全く無縁だと思ってるからね。
Wrong.
職員一人を一団体調べさせるためだけに出張させるのは、すごく痛いよ、ほんと。
At this point, he was just complaining. He was telling me to stop taking time enjoying my trip, to finish up and get back quick.
なるべく早めにケリをつけるようにします。
うん、よろしくね。じゃあ、他に何もなければ切るよ。
はい、特にありません。
I think I would be willing to bet that Hinamizawa and Onigafuchi Guardian specifically, they know that this call happened and they know the contents of it. I think I'd be willing to put money on that, to be honest. As we were ending our call, he scolded me thoroughly for being late with my regular report. After that, I hung up the phone and sprawled out on the bed. Come to think of it, I hadn't heard anything from Ooshi. He was supposed to contact me about a time and place to meet with the informant tonight. I thought about getting angry with Ooshi in retaliation for being scolded for forgetting my daily report. Come to think of it, though, Ooshi didn't really say anything other than that he was going to call tonight. Waiting for a phone call when he didn't know what time it was going to come was in itself rather difficult. Well, that's probably it. Or it's, Hinamizawa being like, you're gonna die. It could be that too. Just when I thought that, the phone rang. I picked up the receiver in a hurry.
もしもし。
これはびっくりしました。
There we go.
赤坂さん、あなた受話器取るの早いですね。
Yeah, we're getting that funky investigation music back. I like this song. This song goes hard.
警官辞めても大企業の影響で十分飯が食えますよ。
まだ警官辞めた後のことなんか考えたこともありません。
Those horns go hard.
そこまで過剰に反応されると面白いな。しかしいけないな。因果な商売ですし。
Trying to bait an overreaction.
遠慮いたしますので、本題に入ってください、大石さん。
そうですか。それは残念です。じゃあ老後の話は次の機会にでも。
Ooshi is such a weird character, man.
では本題に。
Many of the executives in the Onigafuchi Guardians had a lot of sway in the neighboring regions. Even in Okinamiya, there were a lot of people with relations in the village. That's why meeting in the Shishibone Market District, far from Okinamiya, was a matter of course.
赤坂さん、こっちこっち。ちょっと迷いましたか。北口からの方が遠回りだけど、道は分かりやすかったかもしれませんね。
いえ、遅れて申し訳ありませんでした。
夕飯はもう食べちゃいました？
ええ、済ませてあります。
じゃあ、お酒の飲めるお店に行きましょうか。洋酒派？日本酒派？女の子のいる店といない店はどっちがいいですかね。
Bro.
お構いなく、勤務中は飲みませんので。
Hearing that, the man that Ooshi had brought along bent backwards as he guffawed, clapping Ooshi on the shoulder.
に？初々しい人でしょ？その分ちょっぴりサービスしてあげてくださいよ。あのお金は全部彼のお財布から出てるんですからね。
The man that Ooshi had brought seemed almost like a ticket scalper or a bookie. Even his appearance was dubious. The informant grinned deviously.
おい、坊主。
Sato. Alright, I'll try to keep that name in mind.
お前、旦那にいくら渡した？だいぶ途中でつまみ食いされてんぞ。
大石氏への仲介手数料も含めていますから、それも含んだ上です。
It seemed that the informant had expected a more extravagant reaction on my part. When I responded matter-of-factly, he realized that I was an entirely different type of person than he was. But rather than putting a distance between us, it seemed that I had piqued his interest.
だから言ったでしょ。真面目な人なんです。でもね、赤坂さん、私たちのような職種の人間は豊富な社会経験がとても武器になるんですよ。
女の子がいて、お酒が飲めるお店での経験がどう？
He's calling him out. The informant, unable to contain himself, clutched at his stomach as he guffawed, heedless of the people watching.
いや、もう。
The boy said, "Oh lordy." Yeah.
赤坂さんはいちいち察しがいいな。よっ、さすが高学歴。
大石さん、あなたどこかで飲んできました
This
ね。
man's already plastered.
酔っ払ってます。
オフタイムに飲んで何が悪いんですか？
No, bro.
あなたは勤務中でも私はオフ。
Bro set up this meeting. He said, "I'm gonna get drunk out of my mind, bro." Ooshi, who was the sort that had fooled around to begin with, was in such a good mood I couldn't figure out a way to deal with him. Completely different than me, who'd come worried about getting every bit of information I could. Ooshi-san. After taking so much money, you were supposed to give me information worth at least as much. I thought this, but then realized that I was getting my information from the informant, so it didn't matter how drunk Ooshi was. There was nothing I could complain about, and I still felt slightly riled up. Ooshi the informant, it was no doubt a fake name, but he introduced himself as Sato, led the way deeper and deeper into the back streets of the market district. Even though the market was bustling, a couple of turns off the main street and you were in a desolate alleyway. Ooshi started climbing a set of stairs on the side of a seedy building. There wasn't any sort of signage, so I couldn't tell if the place was open or if it was even a store at all.
安心してください。怪しい店じゃありませんよ。
Those words, coming from Oishi's mouth, had absolutely no credibility. Yeah. Oh, is this the Mahjong parlor? Yep. Beyond the door was, thankfully, a typical Mahjong parlor. I was relieved that it wasn't the sort of suspicious place I had to be on my guard about.
はい、いらっしゃい。あら、大石さん、お久しぶり。こっち入ります？すぐ開きますよ。
いいえ。今日はセットですからいいです。お、待たせましたね。
Mahjong is a game played with 4 people. It seems that a middle-aged man who was going to be our fourth had already arrived and was waiting for us.
遅えぞクラウド。俺はもう消えろと思ってたんだから。
Ooshi made an excuse for why we had taken so long. Eventually, realizing that I was a new face, the other man grew interested.
彼は赤坂さん。東京からはるばる出張されてきた将来有望な新人さんです。
You know, I think it's pretty obvious, but like this chapter really is very different than anything we've seen. It feels like, I mean, you know, so much more investigative, right? It feels like, I don't want to say, I don't know. It feels like closer to, it almost feels closer to Ace Attorney than like Higurashi chapters 1 through 3, right? Which I don't think is a bad thing. I kind of like the more, there's still like, you know, the lightheartedness and jokiness that Higurashi loves to throw in there, but there's a lot less slice of life stuff going on, it feels like. We're just like right into it. We're just like right into it, you know? I'm enjoying it so far. It's just a very different vibe.
坊主、お前麻雀はできんのか？
This guy probably does not know how to play Mahjong.
まあ、学生時代にそこそこに。
Sato and the old man cackled in unison. Your plot to sucker me out of my money was painfully obvious.
緊張続きの出張で疲れておいでだろうと思いましてね。
They're hustling this man.
一つ今夜は心の選択でもして差し上げましょうかと思いまして。
今さら野暮なことを聞きますが、私たち警察官ですよね。
まあそれは一個なしで。なに、10歳にはかけるわけじゃありませんよ。この後いいお店に遊びに行くときに誰が全員分を払うのか決めるだけですって。
I mean, that's still gambling. But it's more like, loser loses all rather than winner takes all.
遊びに行く？どんな店に遊びに行くんだ？
Without reservation, the three of them started suggesting places like cabarets, high-class clubs, and even brothels. At the very least, they were the types of places that you wouldn't go to with money that was just for funsies.
私のお金は先日、大石さんに根こそぎ預けて、支払いは不可能ですし、仕事の都合があるので、長居はできないのですが。
じゃあ坊主が勝てばいいじゃねえかよ。
Yeah, real.
おめえが勝ったらこの雀荘の支払いはなしで、クラウドに仕事の話でも何でもすればいい。
No matter what happened, it seemed like they were intent on playing mahjong for free. I'd have to fasten my resolve a bit. If I was going to be underestimated like this forever, it was going to get in the way of my work.
わかりました。では、少しだけお付き合いします。私が勝ったら、アフターの遊びは一切なしで、すぐに仕事の話に入ってもらいますからね。
Oh, snap.
いいですとも。
俺が勝ったら
Akasaka.
フラワーのブルーマーメイドに直行だからね。
おやっさんも好きだな。私はもちろん馴染みの店をはしごしまくりですよ。
Y'all are wild. Man calls himself an old lech. Like, that's insane.
あけみちゃん。佐藤さんはどうします？
私は静かに飲めるお店でいいですよ。
静かにバニーさんとでしょ。
Bro.
この間飲みに行った時、あとバニーさんの尻尾を引っこ抜いちゃったでしょ。
That's
あ
wild,
れ結
bro.
局弁償だったの？
Probably.
マスターに縫製代とか言われて一本ドンペリ開けられたな。
What a lively table this was. Yeah, no kidding. They are all, I don't want to say they're unserious, because I'm sure they all get serious when it really comes down to business, But right now, they're unserious. I could tell the other customers were glaring at us while we loudly continued our crude conversation. Speaking of which, the fact that they assumed I was the same was a bit disheartening. Ooshi had taken all the money I'd brought, so everything I had left was out of my own pocket. In addition, there wasn't that much left of that either. If I kept on hanging around him like this, through his goading, my wallet would disappear into the night. I had to somehow win and return the conversation to my job. But these people, no matter how you looked at it, were pretty good. Sorry, Yuki. Bro's gonna go broke. Just I was saying it's not super slice of lifey. This almost feels like a slice of life section. Like, this kind of feels like the, the board game club. I mean, same music and everything, so hard to not draw that comparison. Well, the old man and Sato-san probably wouldn't fall for this silly Richi. I wonder if Akasaka-kun will spit out what I need.
クラウドのリーチなんざどうせこの辺だろ。この辺なら通るだろ。それ。
Oh ho! The old man's pretty good. He's quietly trying to use one of my safe tiles to complete his hand, isn't he? It seems that Akasaka-kun has at least learned the ropes when it comes to guarding against someone's Richi. But that will be his
ど
downfall.
うした坊主。サクッと切らねえかい。よくわからなかったらクラウドと同じもんを切ってりゃ安全だぞ。
Ooh, Akasaka-kun's really fretting over this one. It was glaringly obvious that he had a safe tile to discard, but he didn't want to throw it away because it would move him farther from completing his hand. They're so nice when they're young and innocent. Come on, hurry up and throw out the kicker. If he gave me the winning tile, we'd be headed to an establishment where I could do with all sorts of licking and sucking. Yo, what? If he gives the old man his winning tile, we'd be headed straight to the place with maids and bloomers.
これは通りますか？
He looked up as he hesitantly threw out a tile that was... Oh, Too bad.
おいおい、危ねえパイだぞ。クラウド、通るのか。
いい、通りますよ。
It seems this time you were lucky. As long as the round kept going, I could still win off the draw. Bro. I mean, they might be underestimating him, I don't know. But after that, Akasaka-kun managed to luckily avoid throwing any bad tiles, and somehow the round managed to end without anybody completing a hand.
天敗。
当然。
Sato-san had keenly anticipated that two players were in Riichi and decided to play it safe. What a cool-headed way of playing. Now let's see, what kind of hand did Akasaka-kun have? When the round ends with nobody winning in Mahjong, anybody in Tenpai has to show their hand. But if you're not in Tenpai, you have no obligation to reveal it. Your average beginner would normally show their hand even if they weren't in Tenpai, start a commotion about how if this tile or that tile came, they would be in Tenpai. But he didn't. Being stingy?
どうだって坊主ちょっと見せてみ
Sato-san reached over to flip the hand that Akasaka-kun had casually placed face down. I would block
なん
that.
じゃこりゃ
He was nowhere near Tenpai. Was Akasaka-kun totally bad at this after all? Right then, as the old man compared the tiles from Akasaka-kun's hand to the discard pool, a puzzled expression crossed his face.
坊主、おめえ、この辺りで張っとるだろ。どうして切った？
マンズの高いあたりが急に高騰しましたので、抑えました。大石さんのリーチに対して安全性が高まったのにです。
I have no clue how this game is played, so this is all going over my head, but...
筋でさばけば無難なのに、わざわざ抑えた方がいる。
おお、クラウドの天敗など鼻から論外。
相当高度な引っ掛けでなければ、私の宝珠を期待したぬるめの手かと思って。それよりも、ダマで張ったあなたの方が、とりあえずは問題でした。
いつ天敗したのに気づいた？
この辺りですか。ノンタイムで4連続で切ってますよね。初めは食い替えかと思いましたが、私をチラチラ見ていたので、期待しているんだと気づきました。
Okay, he's shockingly good at reading people. Akasaka-kun, you...
赤坂さん、あんた麻雀始めてどのくらい？
高校から大学くらいまでの間しかやっていませんよ。さあ、続けましょう。
Bro said, I'm basically a beginner.
佐藤さんはテンパイしなかったから流れて、次は私ですね。おや。
Seems like Akasaka-kun is really aware of how this game flows. We thought we were just going to eat him alive, but it looks like that isn't going to be so easy. Okay, he's got a little fight in him. Oh, snap!
想像が濃すいですね。
Oh, snap! Is that our first view of Bro? I think that's the first time we've seen, who I assume is Akasaka.
回しますか。
この坊主、クラウド、降りるな。
あと3つ。いい牌が来ればな。佐藤さんはうまくいきそうです。
くそ食いたんで引きずり下ろすか C だ
チーですか。じゃあすみません。それポンです。
Whoa now. Going to call 3 of a kind after he declared a straight? Trying to override and interfere?
坊主、おめえ、離れしとるな。
まさか、私が生まれる前から打ってるような方々とは比べようもないですよ。あ、それです。ロン。
Bro said, I can't even compare to y'all. By the way, I win.
トイトイ赤赤トラさん。親ですからね。ちょっぴり高いですよ。
くわっ
Is this a reverse hustle?
赤坂さんやるな。これは我々も本気を出さないと。ねえ。
Okay.
本気のついでに展望も出してもらいましょうかね。
Whoa, yo.
私は眠いんで、手っ取り早く終わらせます。
Bro said, could you get serious about handing over your points? That's tough. Akasaka-kun? It's just somehow unreal. Before I could realize it, there was an ominous cold air emitting from beneath Akasaka-kun's feet.
ぬるいですね。
Bro.
マンズのリャンウーパーが笑ってませんか？
Bro, why is he a demon at this game? What?
くしょ坊主てめえクラウド、お前差し込め。坊主の親、とっとと下ろすだ。
悔しいですが、どうやらそうした方が賢明なようですね。
出たローだはいよドライチ
すみませんね。
Head
頭っぱらです。ロン、 ピンフ。
頭っぱねだ小僧のくせに。
Oh, dude, I thought that was an insult. Is it? Is that an insult? I think it's an insult.
小僧が相手だと
Yo,
バカバカしくて手を緩む
why
って
is he
わけ
on
ですか。
why is he on demon hours when he's playing mahjong, bro? What is this?
じゃああんたその小僧以下ってわけですね。
This man's demeanor flipped like he's a Hinamizawa or something.
面白いな。あんたら連中は決まって小僧だ坊主だって言うよ。
Bro.
赤坂くんですよね。
Bro.
なんでかムードが変わりまくりなんですかね。
私をかもって今晩はいいお酒を飲むおつもりだったんでしょうが、どうやら皆さんの当ては外れそうです。
Bro, what? I cannot believe what I'm seeing. I guess I slept on Akasaka.
単品3食赤1ドラ1。
おお、張ってやがったか。
だからあんたぬるいよ。
This feels like something straight out of a shonen.
いくらダマだからってこんなにぬるい三面なんだから読んでくれなくっちゃ。
Bro, he called it obvious. He just said they're trash. Akasaka-kun chuckled as he rested his chin in his hands. That pose was so fitting it was almost scary.
おいクラウド、話が違えぞ。初々しいカモがネギ背負ってきたって言ったのは誰だ。
いや
Bro got reverse hustled.
誰でしょう。おいさ、まずいよ。このままじゃ負けるよマジで。
Akasaka-kun, for you to make me get serious, looks like you really want to be milked dry.
ポン気前がいいですね。もう一回ポンです。
Akasaka-kun was almost singing at this point. The tiles he had open were all pin tiles. You can't be serious. Are you really going for the flush?
坊主、正気か。4つも晒したらおめっぱいが1つだけじゃねえかよ。
そうですね。知ってます？短期待ちって一番読まれにくいらしいですよ。
バカかってめえ。そこまで染めて晒しといて今さら出ると思うんじゃねえ。読めてますよ赤坂さん。それチーズでも本一でもないんでしょう。4つポンした時点でトイトイは成立してますからね。あんた今絶好の単独トップ。こいつはチーズと見せかけてトイトイで食おうという挑発手でしょう。
そう思うならビンズ切ってみます？
Oh, the question is this going to be some Death Note shenanigans where it's like, I knew that you would know what I think, so I outplayed what you thought I would do.
大石さんの牌の左5つ、さっきから切り損ねてるピンズですよね。それを端から順に切ってみたらいいんじゃないですか？
You must be joking. Is he a mahjong god? If not, he had to be the main character of a manga or something. You're not wrong. You're close. At that moment, the old man sent me a sign under the table. The message was simple and
ク
clear.
ラウド、やれ。
Oh, they
叩
cheat.
き潰せ。
こんな若い子に様は好きじゃないんですがね。
あほ。ここまで舐められて今さら引けるか。
They cheat.
もう知りませんよ。ではどうぞ。
I feel like he's gonna call this out too.
行くぞ坊主。
What if he predicted the cheating?
リーチだ。オープンで行くぞ。ピンズの一数値待ちだ。
Most likely, the tile that Akasaka-kun was waiting for was one of those tiles. With this, Akasaka-kun was no longer capable of winning the hand. When I drew from the wall, I switched out the tile that Akasaka-kun would draw. The tile that I put in was the 1 pin, one of the tiles that the old man was waiting on. Akasaka-kun discarded it a little while ago, so there's no threat of it being the one he needed.
おい、坊主の番だぜ。
Watch. I knew he was troubled that the tile he drew was the 1 pin. Of course, he couldn't discard it.
坊主。分かってると思うが、オープンリーチに振り込んだら
言われるまでもありませんよ。
The tile that came from Akasaka-kun's hand was an honor tile. Whew, ain't that something. There's only one north wind tile left, isn't there? There's only one north wind tile left, isn't there? Okay, I don't know what a north wind tile is. Like, without knowing the rules of the game, some of this is all going over me, but all I know is they're having a heated battle right now. You were counting on a really rough wait, weren't you? But with this, Akasaka-kun's fate was decided.
カズ、命拾いしたな。だが、手配は1名だ。逃げ切れなくなることもあるんじゃねえのか？
やっぱりそういうことか。
Akasaka-kun glared at the old man with a discerning eye. This guy had pretty good instincts. Did he figure out we were cheating?
やめましょうよ、やっさん。赤坂君の方が2、3枚は上手です。
バル、ここまで来てやめられるか。次行け、使わせちまえ。
The next tile Akasaka-kun would draw was the 7-pin. With that, it would be settled. No matter which one he discarded, he'd play right into the old man's hand. An unavoidable full payout. When I drew my tile, I sneakily swapped Akasaka-san's. Crash. What? Akasaka-kun suddenly sneezed, collapsing the wall of tiles in front of him.
おいおい、何やってんだ。
すみません。ついくしゃみをした拍子に山を崩しちゃって。
Oh, I'm sure it was an accident.
バップ払いですね。親だから4000オールですか？それとも、バップは積み棒に？
Bro plays dirty. Unable to hold back like a fraud, Akasaka-kun, knowing he was going to be cornered a second time and unable to escape, he took the drastic measure of knocking over his own wall.
やるな、坊主。
Yo, he plays dirty. Dude, honestly, the more I see of Akasaka, the more I like him.
役満払いをそういう手で防ぐとはな。
大石さんも、そんな見え見えの積み込みは勘弁してください。これが馬場なら、今ので卓をひっくり返してたところですよ。
いえいえいえいえいえいえ。すみません、すみません。
No, you ain't.
あなたを侮っていましたよ。あなたどうしてお強いじゃないですか。
正直に話さんかい。若い頃はだいぶ慣らしたんだろ。
早稲田高田の馬場あたりでだいぶ遊ばせてもらいました。ちょっと勝ちまくりすぎて馴染みの店に出禁を食らいまして。
Yo, that's crazy.
今の家内にだいぶ怒られて足を洗ったんです。
勝ちまくりすぎて？あんた当時はどのくらいの勝率でやってたの？
メンツにもよりましたが、歌舞伎町あたりで打つときはほぼ負けなしでした。特に相手があれ系の人のときは命かかってました。
Yo, his life on the line? 20 times? They didn't even say that, but what kind of stakes were those? Did you have Yakuza at your table? Or pro baseball players?
なんだクラウド、このタク。お前どっからこんなプロ雀士みたいなの引っ張ってきたんだ。
Bro, they literally got reverse hustled. That's crazy. They came in here trying to hustle him, but they got hustled.
もうやめだやめ。ああもう、坊主、おめえの勝ちだ。降参。
ありがとうございます。光栄です。
いやいや。しかし赤坂さん、あんた打つと性格変わるね。
Yeah, it does.
なんで就職なんかしたの？あんたならフリーで十分に飯食っていけるじゃない。
Yeah, seems like Yuki wasn't a fan of it though.
プロ雀士には腕と突きの両方が必要なんですよ。私には後者がありませんでしたから。
好きなんてその時の運不運だろ。あんたほどの腕があれば十分にいけると思うがな。
波の突きじゃダメなんですよ。関したら3回に1回くらいはそのままカンドラが4つ乗ってここぞという時に狙ってリンシャンが引ける。そのくらいじゃないと。
いや、赤坂君、そんなのが頻繁にできたらそれはもう超能力者ですよ。
I should have known bro was dirt nasty at this game.
いえ、イカ様でも超能力でもなく、そのくらいの打ち手は結構いるんですよ。新宿で知り合った泣くたびにドラが乗りまくる雀士なんか鬼のように強かったですし、 横浜で打ったプロなんかは当たり前のように一発で引き当ててましたからね。私にはああいう月がないんです。
What type of folks were those? They weren't named Ryu or Satoshi by any chance. I'm sure that's like a reference that I'm not getting. I mean, obviously I recognize the name Satoshi, but I don't think it has any relation to the Satoshi that we know.
というわけで総合トップは私でよろしいですね。
へいへいへい、乾杯でございますよ。
Alright, so get into business.
うんふんふん。
That was a fun little sequence, but I would love to get some information from the informant.
負けた負けた。久しぶりに大負けだ。
しかし打ってる時の坊主気合入ってたな。
Yeah, he was.
結構怖かったぜ。
よく言われます。自分ではそんなに目つき変えてるつもりはないんですがね。
Bro just gets in the zone.
そんなに怖い目になってましたか？
The three of us nodded emphatically in agreement. So that was Akasaka-kun, the Mahjong prodigy. Before he goes home from his assignment, maybe I could have him go play at a high-stakes table in my place. But it's not good to get greedy.
じゃあ仕方ないや。約束です。夜の学習会はこれでお開きにしましょう。申し訳ありませんね、おやっさん。今夜はこれでおひ。
しゃあねえな。冷えて寝るわ。体力つけんと体が持たん。
お仕事が大変なんですか？
ああ、おやっさんはhinamizawa沢ダムの第一工区の監督さんなんです。
Oh.
しゃあねえな。冷えて寝るわ。体力つけんと体が持たん。
Interesting. Very interesting.
住民とは連日小競り合いをしてますからね。しんどい商売ですよ。
来年あたり第二工区も任されちまうかもしれねえな。
Yeah, something like that.
ああ、おやっさんはhinamizawa沢ダムの第一工区の監督さんなんです。住民とは連日小競り合いをしてますからね。しんどい商売ですよ。
They used the word. I heard it. I heard the word. Let me double check. I'm pretty sure I heard Kantaku.
ああ、おやっさんはhinamizawa沢ダムの第一工区の監督さんなんで
Yeah,
す。
that's right there.
住民とは連日小競り合いをしてますからね。しんどい商売ですよ。
Meaning that means exactly what I think it means, right? Not that I really had much doubt, but interesting. I certainly did not actually ever expect to meet that character, right? I don't know if it's like actually going to be relevant that we've met them, or if it's just going to be like a like if this is just a cool little background thing that we got to see them, right? But it's interesting. We'll see if they pop back up.
黒田さん、血圧上がりまくりって聞いたしよ。身が持たねえや。
おやっさんなら大丈夫でしょう。あなた、見た目よりも面の皮厚めですしね。
Yeah.
俺だって仏じゃねえからな。腹渡にくり返るときあるぞ。特に、園崎のあの小娘は我慢がならん。
Bro cannot stand Mio.
あいつの顔面、いつか簡単には治らんくらいに歪ませたろって思ってる。
まあまあまあ。でも、給料はいいんでしょ？かなり破格の給金だって聞きましたよ。
Yeah, it's hazard pay.
おっとりめえだ。あんなに世知辛い職場で給料が安かったら誰も残らんよ。あ、クラウド。警察はいつになったら村の人間全部追っ払ってくれるんだ。国から立ち退き命令とか出てるんだろ？
ねえ、どうなってるんでしょうね。
The old man, who identified himself as the foreman of the Hinamizawa Dam, spewed a few complaints until he felt better about it, then left quietly.
じゃ、行きましょう。あとは佐藤さんに任せますかね。
大石さんは帰られるんですか？
私が一緒でもお邪魔しちゃうだけでしょ。それに佐藤さんの仕事を買ったのはあなたです。私は対価を払ってませんからね。
Ooshi-san was kind of sketchy, but he was strangely conscientious about some things. I felt quite a bit of a gap between myself and Oishi's generation from that part of him I didn't comprehend.
じゃあ坊主、いや ジャンシ様にもう坊主なんて言えねえな。
Bro literally said I gotta put some respect on his name.
赤坂くんでよかったっけ？
はい。
じゃあ赤坂くん、行こうか。
Let's see if we can...
では、赤坂さん。
I'm looking forward to what information we get out of this.
また。何か困ったことがあったらいつでも頼りに来てくださいね。
大石さんにお支払いできるような対価はもう持ってませんよ。
んじゃ、今度の勝負で少し手加減してもらえたらチャラにしますよ。
Ooshi, seemingly still not having had his fill of playing around, but without overstaying his welcome, disappeared into the night. Okay. Quick little transition. I doubt that's the chapter, though. I mean, I guess it could be, but... Tips would have popped up by now, surely. Yeah. The informant, named Sato-san, had me get into his car before he set off. He favored narrow roads and made numerous short left turns.
左折法による尾行確認ですか？
詳しいな。
Checking to see if you were being tailed by making left turns was a rather classic technique. If it was just a single pursuer, you could confirm it that way. If you were being tailed as a team, this archaic method wouldn't let you shake them. Of course, doing it anyway was better than not.
赤坂くんが何者かは旦那から何も聞いてないんだが、やっぱり警察関係かい？尾行確認に詳しいなんて、あとは探偵者くらいしか思いつかねえね。
言わなければならないものでないなら拒否したい質問ですね。
That's probably wise.
やれやれ。麻雀やってからすっかり雰囲気が大人びちまったな。会った時のあのおどおどしたあんたはどこ行っちゃったんだよ。
I smiled wryly. Looking back now, I had to be a little grateful for being made to play mahjong. Thanks to that, I was able to relieve some tension. Eventually, Sato-san, confirming that there were no cars following us, slipped outside the city. We were on a pitch-black country road, unable to see anything besides the lights outside. The only things I was able to hear were the hum of the car's air conditioning and the chirping of insects and frogs.
旦那からHinamizawa村については多少のことは聞いてんだろ？
Yeah.
御三家という旧家による支配や、現在は園崎家が一党独裁をしているとか、そういう話ですか？
Hopefully this isn't just going to be rehashes of information we already know as the player. Hopefully it's going to be new to us as well.
そこまで知ってるなら、くだらない前置きは省略していいな。
では、お願いします。犬飼大臣の孫の誘拐に、鬼ヶ淵死守同盟が関与しているか否かを。
Sato-san checked the rearview mirror one more time to confirm there wasn't anybody behind us before speaking.
昨夜、園崎本家で親族会議が開かれたそうだ。親族会議ってのは、旦那から聞いてるか？
No.
いえ、
普通に親族会議って言ったら、まあ、親戚が集まってお茶でも飲むようなもんだよな。だが、園崎本家の親族会議っていうのは、そんなのんびりしたものってわけが違う。
So something big's going on? Shocker, but a family council held by the Sonozaki main house. It would be a meeting between those who truly controlled Hinamizawa village. They wouldn't be talking about private family matters, it would be about the village as a whole. About organizing activities against the dam project. Among other things, everything would be decided there. In reality, they were deciding the fate of the village. At the head of the meeting was Oryu Sonozaki, more or less called Empress Sonozaki. As the ultimate decision maker of the clan, she was to be feared and respected. Infirm with old age, she was often unable to stand on her own, but her words carried enough weight to sway the fate of the village. It seemed that lately she had grown weak, and on days where she wasn't feeling well, remained bedridden. Family councils that occurred while she wasn't feeling well took place with her on the floor. In the middle of a dignified Japanese-style room, still in a futon, only the upper half of her body sitting upright, a stern look on her face. That was Oryu Sonozaki. Even despite everything going on, she is not giving up. Which isn't a shocker. I mean, she basically straight up said, like, I'm not gonna go until, like, this is done. We saw that in the tip. Sitting next to her was her heir, Mion Sonozaki. She was still young. No, young wasn't quite the right word. She was a girl who remained childish. Her role was to merely sit beside Oryu Sonozaki, sometimes responding to her requests. However, she was the only one deemed worthy to succeed Oryu. She had the same hawkish eyes, enough to give pause to anybody who so much as looked at them. Much was expected of her in the future, this granddaughter of the Sonozaki's leader. And also, on either side of her, sat several other important members of the remaining three families, the Kimiyoshi family and the Furude family. First on the list for the Kimiyoshi family was of course the mayor of Hinamizawa village, Ch.4 Kimiyoshi, and lined up beside him were several more of his direct relatives. Opposite to them sat the other of the three families, the Furude family. Rika's there. The Furude family was only comprised of the family of a Shinto priest, so the only ones sitting there were said priest, his wife, and their daughter Rika. Rika was doted on by many of the older folks in the village, and it seemed that Oryu was no exception. While the stress from just attending a family council was said to be enough to shorten her lifespan by 3 days, it seemed like Rika was the only one exempt from that. No matter how charged the atmosphere was around her, she paid it no mind, instead humming along as she doodled in a sketchbook. In fact, the night before, lying on her stomach while humming and doodling, she nonchalantly tucked her legs into Oryu's futon like it was a kotatsu. That's crazy. All this was the three families, and all around the room, lined row upon row, were relatives of the Sonozaki family. The only ones who were afforded cushions to sit on were direct relatives. The others were left to sit in the Seiza position Seiza? I'm assuming that's how you say that. In a Seiza position directly on the tatami mats. With Empress Sonozaki enshrined at their center, they were almost like a giant snake coiled around the room. It was decided that everybody would sit in order of their rank. The number of people from the Sonozaki family was overwhelming. The fact that the Sonozaki family held so many seats at a meeting where everything pertaining to the village was decided made determining where the balance of power was held in the three families as clear as day. The number of members in attendance from each of the families directly reflected how much influence they had in ruling Hinamizawa.
その会議で何が話されたんですか?
Sato-san, after remaining silent for a while, quietly began to speak. This is what we want to get into.
マスコミ関係に支払ってる謝礼金の額が大きいんじゃないかい?
Breaking the long moan of silence was the head of the Kimiyoshi family, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. The Onagafuchi Guardians wasn't a business. They were nothing more than a private organization pushing for the cancellation of the Hinamizawa Dam project, with no reliable source of income. Fundraising has always been a problem. When they first started operating, they had managed to collect a sizable amount of funds through donations, but as the conflict dragged on, that amount was steadily declining.
石を投げるだけが全ての時代じゃないさ。マスコミの力も侮れないのは重々承知しているし、今後もその力を借りたいのは同じさ。
This voice is familiar. This voice... Why do I recognize this voice? God. I should probably know who this is. I don't know. We're just gonna move on. No, we're not.
石を投げるだけが全ての時代じゃないさ。マスコミの力も侮れないのは重々承知しているし、今後もその力を借りたいのは同じさ。
Right, I think that's the kidnapper that doesn't have the really blatantly country accent, right? I think that's who that is. I could be wrong, though. The expressions of the people related to the Sonozaki family were sullen, as the one who suggested that they should borrow that power was the family head, Oryu Sonozaki. The battle wasn't just about force of arms. In this civilized age, there were civilized methods of fighting. I will say, I do kind of agree that it's important to have the media, like, under your thumb. Oryu suggested that, creating a strategy incorporating the mass media. Oryu's foresight was spot on, and the effects of that plan, while at first unclear, slowly began to manifest. If the physical confrontation at the construction site was meant to delay progress in the dam by even 1 day, then the propaganda war using the media was aimed at attacking the dam project itself. At first, there were those who had doubts about that strategy. There was nobody now who could call those results into question. But in order to maintain those media ties, a colossal amount of money was required. As long as the amount of funds they had was abundant, things would turn out fine. It couldn't be argued that it was a massive expense, but the results spoke for themselves. But, with the conflict continuing to drag on, the circumstances had changed. The head of the Sonozaki family, no, the one who sat at the pinnacle of the Hinamizawa's three families, Oryu, had suggested the idea herself, so it was already untouchable, and continued to be allowed to drain from the budget. Nobody acknowledged that it should be so allowed, but nobody could say anything. That was the price of dealing with the mass media.
どうも、お嬢さん。
The only person who could object to a plan proposed by the head of the Sonozaki household herself was probably Mayor Kimiyoshi. Oryu, with a hard-to-define expression on her face, as if she had severed herself from the fetters of mortal emotion, simply listened quietly to Kimiyoshi's words. But really, it was hard to tell if she was quietly listening or didn't even have the intention of listening at all.
去年機関士の値上げの理解を得るのにも随分苦労したじゃない。一度だけってことで理解を得て、また今年もってわけにはいかないよ。ねえ、古手さん。
The mayor looked to the priest and his wife from the Furude family for affirmation. The priest gave a vague expression, avoiding a prompt response, but his wife gave her answer without a second thought.
そうですね。機関士代は特に貧しい家には大きな負担になっています。みんな自分たちの村のためだからと耐えていますが、これ以上の値上げはやめた方がいいでしょうね。
The bulletin was, as its name implied, a bulletin published by the Onigafuchi Guardians. It outlined the Alliance's activities, ideals, and resolve, but you couldn't deny the contents were rather piecemeal. That bulletin's main goal wasn't to inform people, but rather was something to sell to businesses and people living in the village or connected to it, and using those sales to collect funds. In other words, it had become something of a tax. Of course, it didn't have to be said that this was one of the main sources of income for the Onigafuchi Guardians. Originally, purchase was supposed to be voluntary, but in Hinamizawa it had silently become the opposite. In the neighboring towns as well, it seemed that many businesses were buying copies just to avoid butting heads with the Alliance. The priest whispered to his wife to not say anything unnecessary, but was struck down decidedly with a cold glare. Cowering from that glare, the priest shut his mouth. The priest's wife always held the power in their relationship. That was because she was the one who carried the Furude bloodline. The priest merely married into the family. He was nothing more than somebody who adopted the name just to join the three families. He should have been able to find a spot fairly high up in the hierarchy of things, but the lack of authority in his voice meant that he had still not gained any favor. Casting a backwards glance at her rather disparate parents, Rika continued to doodle whimsically without paying them any mind. Signaled by a look from Oryu, Mion brought her ear closer to her grandmother. There, something was said to her in a quiet voice. After responding with a couple questions, with a nod from Oryu, Mion looked around the room and conveyed her grandmother's words.
機関士の値上げもやむを得ません。
Kimiyoshi made a face like he had just bit into something unpleasant, but that expression quickly disappeared like it had never happened at all.
だけどミオンちゃん、君だって分かってると思うけど、機関士の負担は決して軽いものじゃない。ひなみ沢のすべての人間にかかる重みなんだ。あんまり負担をかけすぎれば内部から崩れることだって。
内部から崩れるのは誰ですか？
どれって別にそういう意味じゃ。
最初に崩れるのは誰かと聞いています。
Being cross-examined by a girl who still had fragments of oh my goodness, childishness remaining within her, the words stuck in Kimiyoshi's throat as he sunk into silence. That is crazy. Mion is like 10 years old tops probably, and is shutting the mayor up. Mion repeated her question once more, looking around the crowded room. Everybody refrained making eye contact to avoid being pierced by her gaze. The words she had spoken were unarguably said in proxy for Oryu. That's why when Mion spoke them, they carried the same weight. But the look in her eyes was different. Like Oryu's, they had a hawkish gaze, strong enough that anybody looking upon them would freeze in their tracks and yield. But that gaze was without question one that belonged to Mion herself, as Mion would eventually inherit everything from Oryu. The day when she would stand up as a young and capable leader in her own right would come. Nobody wanted to believe otherwise for even a minute. That's why nobody even thought of Mion as just some sort of little kid.
君吉さん、機関士の値上げごときでは誰の決意も崩れませんよ。
Kimiyoshi, while grumbling a little bit, made a gesture as if to say he had no objection.
マスコミ関係への出費は継続とします。その出費がさらに圧迫となるようなら、機関士の値上げもやむを得ない。
Mion had rendered her judgment. Everybody bowed their heads, silently listening to her words. Jeez. Yeah, this doesn't... I knew that the Sonozakis held the power, but it's like... Even the mayor, it's like, he just got punked. Like, it is the Sonozaki show, straight up.
園崎家当主代行、園崎ミオンです。我が名において、以上決定し、決定の効力は即日発行されるものとします。異議はこれを認めず、抵抗ある場合は実力をもって排除します。
Okay, alright, we're ruling by force. Shocker. The formal decree was read aloud, indicating her judgment. There would be no retrial. There was a certain authority behind those words that even a courthouse couldn't compare to. If she was a judge, she would have banged her gavel, signaling that the matter was settled. Mion pulled out a large bell from inside her clothes and rang it. Everybody present could only prostrate themselves before the harsh sound of the bell.
なんとも大時代的な親族会議ですね。
Alright, so, I mean, that's good to know, and I think that could be relevant information that, they're controlling the mass media, and then this bulletin is like, you're expected to buy it, and the price keeps going up, which could explain why some people became very much displeased, right, with this project and kind of fell out of favor with it, right, because, I mean, it was a crazy financial burden. Like, I mean, why can I not remember Satoko's family? I can't remember Satoko's family's name. Hojo. The Hojo family, for example, ended up being for the dam project. I don't know, maybe that could be a reason, right? And I mean, that could maybe tie into some other families being for it as well, because they financially cannot afford to be against it, with like this basically being a tax, which I mean could explain some of what's going on, and right, maybe why some people were killed, right, in the Watanagashi killings. It could have been retaliation killings for being the ones that buckled here. They're being removed by force, right? That being said, while I do think this information will be important in the long run, it wasn't super important in terms of did they kidnap the mayor's grandchild, or not the mayor's grandchild, the Minister of Construction's grandchild.
あんたみたいな若いもんにゃちょっと信じられないだろうけどね。こういう古い土地にはこんなのが未だ根強く残ってるもんさ。
It was exactly as Ooshi had said. The old system of the three families had vanished, and now the Sonozaki family was running things by themselves. On top of that, their rule was borderline despotic.
会議はそれで終わりですか？
いや、
Okay.
まだ続く。先を続けるよ。
Eventually, after the ringing of the bell ceased, there was a deafening silence. Then all of that, a lone man shuffled closer to Mion and whispered something in her ear. Mion asked several questions quietly in response. When she was satisfied, she motioned for the man to leave. The man who talked to Mion was a member of a gang that her father was the leader of. That organization had the entire area of Shishibone City under its control, so it was quite well known even here. Of course, this was talking about the criminal underworld, so it's not like just anybody would know. But just showing a patch with the gang symbol on it was enough to resolve any disputes in the neighborhood. Mion's biological father, Tooryu, was her daughter's husband. The power of that man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly of the Onigafuchi Guardians. Actually kind of funny to think about, right? How much power the father has, whereas the mother straight up got like kicked out, right? Like she's like been declared not worthy of being the successor. There was some information on it, so let me see if I can find it real quick. The daughter Akane, the daughter of Oryu, was even disowned, was basically what I wrote. So I don't know that they give us a reason, but I don't know if that's happened at this point, but at some point, Mion's mother got disowned, yet the father is, like, still, and he's not even the blood relative, right? But he's still, like, very important, it seems. It's interesting. The power of that man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly of the Onigafuchi Guardians. And so that man, from his position as the next in line to control the three families, continued to coerce everybody around him with his unconventional presence. Mion exchanged a look with her father. Was it okay for her to tell what she had just heard directly to Oryu? It looked like she was asking him that question. Her father gently, but firmly, nodded his response. Mion also nodded, and sidled up to Oryu and informed her of something. Eventually, Mion finished conveying her message, separated herself from Oryu, and fixed her posture, waiting for Oryu to signal her response. It wasn't often that Oryu showed any emotion. That's why, when she started to laugh quietly, a vague sense of uneasiness crept over everybody in the room. Yeah, I can see why that would make them uneasy.
ほら、難儀なこともあったものよの。
Oryu was laughing so happily that Kimiyoshi had hesitantly asked.
どうしたんだい？ お嬢さん。
我らにとって土地が母なら、この度のダムの騒ぎは母の命を脅かされる騒ぎっちゅうことだろうな。
Right. Himiyoshi, unable to comprehend the meaning of her words, looked confused. Oryu, with a wide grin on her face, turned towards everybody and addressed them in a clarion voice.
ダムの親玉の大臣がの、孫さらわれちまって、
Oh.
右往左往しとるっちゅう話だ。こんれでおあいこだの。
バカな。
Information on the kidnapping of Minister Inukai's grandson shouldn't have leaked from anywhere. How did they know? Even we didn't know much about the kidnapping incident. Exactly how did an antiquated household so far away from Tokyo come to know of it? Oh, you already know. It was a tranquil place, but I couldn't help but have an uneasy feeling about Hinamizawa village. At some point, I had mentally filed this place away as unrelated to the incident at hand. That mental paperwork had just blown away in the wind.
どうして鬼ヶ淵氏主導名が知っているんだ。
I think it's pretty obvious, dude. Sato-san, unable to come up with an answer, fell into silence.
すみません。続きをお願いします。
Yeah.
なあ、
Need to keep seeing more of this meeting. This was a big meeting, for sure.
犬飼建設大臣のお孫さんがさらわれた。お嬢さん、それは本当かい？
That major of an incident was nowhere to be seen in the newspapers or on TV. But in Hinamizawa, there was nothing strange about Oryu knowing something that the rest of the world didn't.
我らの痛みは母を失う痛みじゃの。それに値するとは思わんが、孫を失う痛み。
Jeez, they're going an eye for an eye.
少しは答えるといいんじゃがの。なあ。
The last question wasn't addressed to anybody in particular. It was as if she was looking for consensus.
だが、土地と人様の子供ではわけが違うの。
That is very true.
隠すのは構わんが、怪我だけはさせたくないものよの。
Oh yeah. I mean, it was pretty obvious already, but if it wasn't obvious to everyone in the room, who was responsible for that kidnapping?
こにゃ何の罪もねえ。大事にしたれな。
それはつまり鬼ヶ淵氏主導名が誘拐事件に関与していると。
必ずしもそうとは言えねえな。
I guess it technically could have been someone else and they're willing to, I guess, shelter them, but it seems likely that they were involved.
どうして当主であるお亮がこれほどまではっきりと誘拐した孫の処遇について指示を出しているのに。
兄さん、これはね、園崎家のいつものことなんだよ。
いつものこと？それはどういう意味です？
Let's say there was a particular problem, one that wasn't exactly favorable for the Sonozaki family. If Oryu shows concern over that particular problem, hearing that somebody who attended the family council would be helpful. As a result, Oryu's wish would be granted. However, neither Oryu or anybody else would know who actually did it. With this kind of clever little ploy, the Sonozaki family was able to manipulate events even though they had their hands laid out on the table. So, okay, so it's one of those things, it might not have been a direct order from the Onigafuchi Guardians or even Oryu herself, but it might have been a, man, wouldn't it be convenient if the Minister of Construction just felt our pain of losing something so precious to them? Right? Like, that kind of thing. Right? Someone does it, you know, no one actually knows who it was besides who actually did it. And it's harder to connect it to anything.
では親族会議に出席していた誰かが犯人ということですか？
あるいはそもそも犯人なんかいない可能性だってあるよな。
What does that mean?
俺自身、その万座の一同の中に誘拐犯がいるって確信を持ってるわけじゃない。ただ、自分の意見を述べただけさ。
It was an odd and unpleasantly secretive way of doing things. Were they involved or weren't they? I couldn't see beyond the veil. This much, however, I could say with certainty. This kidnapping was an ironclad secret. No matter how high a position somebody was in, even they wouldn't know about it. If there was somebody who would know about it, it would be connected to public safety. In other words, one of us. The only other options were people connected to the case itself, including the minister. There would be people affected by the incident, or the people that committed it. In any case, there was no way an old household in a place removed from Tokyo by over 6 hours of highway travel should know about it. Them knowing it all was already strange. My suspicions began to accumulate, like falling snow.
孫の誘拐についてお涼が述べたのはここまでだ。
Alright, so let's look at that again. So basically, what Akasaka is saying here is that the only people who could even know about this are people within public safety, which I mean, like, means potentially a mole, or the people who actually did the kidnapping. Bro, apparently I don't know how to mute my phone. Ooh. Almost just called the police. I did not mean to do that. I was trying to hit the power down button, and apparently I spammed the volume down button, and apparently I spammed the power button, which is how I do an emergency SOS call, I guess. Good to know, but I certainly don't need to call the police over Higurashi When They Cry. Okay, so it seems to me, like I said, the implication is either that they did it, or there is a mole who told them that this happened. Because either way, they shouldn't know about this. One of the first things I'm thinking of is, okay, first of all, I do strongly believe it was someone in the Sonozaki family, right? But I also want to consider the possibility of a mole. And one of the moles, I mean, like, I really didn't want to believe that Ooshi was involved in any of this. But it seems like very, very shortly after we told Ooshi, the main household knew about this, right? Could he have told them? Could he have told them? Right? I mean, there's already enough strange stuff going on around Ooshi. So I think, honestly, the more I play this game, the more I'm like, dude, I might need to suspect Ooshi. I didn't want to suspect him, because for as weird and, like, alright, so unfortunately we had to kind of briefly, well, it wasn't even really briefly, I had to jump cut there. Stuff was happening in the house. So honestly, it's been a bit, I kind of lost my train of thought, unfortunately. I know I was talking about Ooshi and how I'm more suspicious of him now, how I'm like, he could potentially be a mole, and there's just a lot of suspicious things going on around him, and he's been the one providing us the craziest details, right? I don't know, I think things like the fact that some of the times of death weren't lining up. The one who told us that was Ooshi, right? So I think it's really, really important that I figure out where we stand on Ooshi, because there's a lot of things that I could just straight up say that information is, like, irrelevant, right? Or just actively misleading, right? It's a big one I gotta keep in mind. So, like I said, unfortunately, I kind of lost my train of thought, so I might have been going somewhere else with that. I won't really know until I rewatch the video, but it doesn't really help me right now. So, we're gonna just keep moving for now. Just as much as Oryu said in regards to the kidnapping.
あんたの知りたかったことが含まれてりゃいいんだがな。あとは兄ちゃんの仕事だな。何のお仕事やってるか知らんけど、園崎家を相手にするなら相当の覚悟でやっとけよ。
Yeah, no kidding.
大石の旦那は怖いもの知らずだけどな。あれでも2、3回は襲われてる。最近は来てないけど、一時はオフの時も防塵ベストを着込んでたんだよな。
You can't catch Ooshi not in a vest.
ええ、忠告ありがとうございます。
標準語が流暢だよな。兄さんは東京とかの人？
え？それが何か？
Investigators were always close to danger. It was best not to divulge any information on myself.
兄さんのお仕事だけどさ、ひょっとして警視庁の公安部の人ってことある？
Now it feels like we're the one being interrogated. I couldn't remain silent here. It would be the same thing as admitting it.
え？まさか。
こっから旦那からもらった金の範囲には入らないんだが、兄さんとは今日宅を囲んだ仲間だからな。サービスってことで話してやるよ。 お寮から誘拐の話が出た後、
Uh-oh.
もう一つ話題が出たんだ。
Another topic that Oryu brought up? And right before he told me this, Sato-san asked if I was from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division? In other words, what those two things meant caused a chill to run up my spine. Oh, they know you're here.
そんででな、大臣の孫サラッターノを調べるために東京からはるばる公安の捜査官が派遣されてくるっちゅう話だ。
Okay, when did they say this meeting took place? Ah, dang it, we're too far back. I'd have to go back and look at it. Guess I'll... Let me make a literal note of this. What? Why is it a read-only document? It's my own document. Okay. Check. Date of meeting. Alright, sorry, moving on. I just wanted to write that down real quick. Because... depending on when the meeting happened, like, if this is... They know, like, straight up in advance, we can assume there's a mole within the Public Safety Division. But if this is after he was already dispatched... Like, the way they're wording it makes it sound like they knew in advance, right? But if it was after he was already dispatched, it could be someone like Ooshi, right?
公安の捜査官。
大臣の孫の誘拐な。警視庁の公安部が独自で調べとるっちゅう話だ。はっ、大行なこったの。どうした？
Rika, who had been drawing the entire time and was completely uninterested in the conversation up until now, looked at Ori with an interested face as soon as the topic of public safety came up.
警視庁が来たのですか？
リカちゃまは警視庁も知ってなさるんかい。偉いの。
誰が来たのですか？
公安のどんなやつが来よったんか。誰ぞわかるやつはおらんかいな。
Mion's father raised his hand slightly.
新米の若造が一人。
Okay, so
聞き及んでおります。
yeah, he's already here, it seems.
新米？ほかほかなのですか？
ん？ええ、はい、新米とか。
Mion's father smiled wryly as he answered Rika's question.
ほかほかのふかふか？
ええ。
ほかほかのふかふか？
Rika smiled with interest. Why did Rika suddenly act interested only when it came to this topic? That was a question that apparently nobody had the answer to.
リカちゃまはその男のこと何か知っているのかな？
知んないのですよ。
Protecting him. After her rather flat reply, Rika buried herself underneath Oryu's futon again. But when she buried herself there, Rika no longer started drawing again. Instead, she was making an expression like she was deep in contemplation.
どうしますか、お母さん。
Mion's father posed the question. He had the type of uncouth expression on his face indicating that, given the order, he could snuff the problem out at any time.
はるばるひなみざまで来よった。しばらくはのんびりさせてやるのもよかろう。
泳がせろということでしょうか。
Mion's father asked in response. Oryu smiled thinly as she responded.
ほっといたれな。が、あんまりおいたが過ぎるようやったら、そん時は遠慮せんとな。なめられるのは、すっきゃせんね。
なんて話があったそうだ。
So as long as he lays relatively low, they will leave him alone. But if he starts really getting involved in things a little too deep, you know, not gonna go well for him.
まさかあんた、その警視庁の新米じゃないよな。
まさか。
The sensation of cold, bristling fear began to crawl its way up my back. This family council took place last night. Okay, no. Okay, so I don't even need to remember the date. That's what I thought they said, but the way they worded it made me unsure. So that took place last night. So they already know he's here. Rika clearly recognized who exactly it is. The question then is, how did they get that information? Once again, it comes down to there's either a mole in the Public Safety Division, or it's Ooshi. The family council took place last night. In other words, yesterday. Then today, when I was dressed up as a tourist headed towards Hinamizawa, my cover was already blown? That's not really shocking. Oh, that was today. Whoops. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so Rika didn't know yet, but Rika was interested. Why was Rika so interested? I don't know, but... And I remember the first person I met when I got to the bus stop. I couldn't breathe. The person at the family council who expressed interest in the man being dispatched from the Metropolitan Police, Rika Furude. And then the person who was waiting for me the whole time in the bus shelter, Rika Furude. It was an unthinkable image. No, it was a delusion. When we met at that bus shelter, did Rika-chan already know my true identity? Oh yeah, she did. Did she know that I was Akasaka, dispatched from the Metropolitan Police Department, and come to meet me? Then, including Mayor Kimiyoshi, every villager that I met, everybody knew but just pretended not to? Because Oryu had given instructions not to interfere. Thinking about it logically, it didn't seem possible. I met quite a number of people. If there's people that are good at acting, then there's people who are bad at hiding things. If there was that many people, then there should have been somebody among them who knew I was from public safety and couldn't hide their hostility. However, I didn't feel any presence like that. But then, even still, why did Oryu tell them to leave me alone? Was it because if they were careless about it, it would only raise more suspicion? Or was it because they believed a rookie like me wouldn't be able to find anything? Akasaka is a coward. I recalled that strange voice which could only make me believe that Rika-chan had been possessed. That unknown entity, no matter how you looked at it, knew my true identity from the get-go. And then, how did it warn me again? That's right. It warned me to hurry up and get back to Tokyo. Instead of the realistic worry that the Onikafuchi Guardians had discovered my identity, the absurd worry brought on by the unknown girl stuck with me more. What exactly was that girl? What was the thing I would eventually regret? That mysterious girl, Rika Furude. Let's stop this. Everything I was thinking of right now was merely conjecture. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I'll report everything I heard right now to HQ and await further orders. There was no mistaking that the possibility the Onikafuchi Guardians were related to this case was there, and that the fact that my cover was blown meant I was in a precarious position. But as everybody at HQ was already extremely busy, they might not be able to spare the support. So what, he's gonna go it alone?
もういいかい? よければ好きなところまで送るよ。
すみません。では、お会いした元の駅までお願いします。
A rural road where even a streetlight was rare. Are you trying to get jumped? I couldn't see anything. I wasn't aware of anything but the asphalt that was lit up by the headlights. Outside of that light, was it simply darkness? Was there something lurking there, waiting to strike? I had to think I drew the short straw here. I wanted to go back to Tokyo. For some reason, the voice of the girl warning me to go back to Tokyo still lingered in my head. What do you mean for some reason? That was insanely creepy. That would linger in my head. I think that's probably the episode. Alright. Let's go ahead and check out these tips. There was a lot in this episode. We don't need to view all of them. Whoops. No. Alright, so this is presumably going to be from the perspective of the antagonist. And these ones... Alright, let's see what's going on here. It's probably back at, like, HQ.
昨日銀座の料亭でお会いしてね。そういう話が出たんだよ。
別室の謁見でしょう。連中、公安に干渉しすぎですよ。あまり迎合すると悪い洗礼を残しますね。
犬飼大臣は公安の動きに不快感をあらわにしているらしい。多分月曜の町議で次官からその旨の話が出るんじゃないかと思う。参ったな。
次官へは局長級に話つけてもらうしかないですよ。給料を多くもらってる人の当然の仕事ってことで。
まあそうなると局長からは絶対に大臣脅迫の物証を求められるよ
な。次官へは局長級に話つけてもらうしかないですよ。給料を多くもらってる人の当然の仕事ってことで。
I didn't hear the word Kantaku in there. So.
あの人、たまにどっちの味方かわかんなくなりますね。うちらの味方しなくてどうすんのっての。
まあ多分
大臣を経由しての圧力だと思ってるけどね。俺が時間室で油汗かいて時間稼ぐ間に調査進めてもらうしかないよな。全身の汗絞られて絞りかすになっちゃうかもしれないけどな。でどうなの、調査の進行は。
期待してた濃厚なラインがことごとく外れて、正直途方に暮れてます。
最近の大臣発言をまとめると、Hinamizawaダムの計画の話が目立つっていう報告を聞いたけど。
目立つっていうか、本当に微細な程度の違和感ですね。たまたま県議連でのスピーチだったから時事ネタを話しただけかもしれないし。
No.
確か地元団体が過激に抵抗してるってやつだっけ。鬼ヶ淵死守同盟。確か赤坂君に調べてもらってたよね。
僕は連中には今回の事件は起こせないと踏んでいます。ですが疑わしいところのほとんどが真っ白な以上、疑いの枠から外すわけにはいかないかもですね。
Yeah, well, at least that's wise.
赤坂君からはその可能性は否定できないとの軽い報告は受けています。
なら調べてみる価値はあるんじゃないの。しらみつぶしなんだから、残る疑わしい団体がそこ一つなら。いや、
まあ調べる団体はそこだけじゃないんですがね。
Yeah.
鬼ヶ淵と同じ程度のレベルで疑わしい団体になると、もう相当の数になりますよ。人手も時間も残業代も全然足りません。
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically it sounds like they know, like, the Onigafuchi Guardians are on their radar, but, like, they can't really investigate them. Like, they just don't have the manpower.
赤坂君からさ、もうちょっと詳しく聞いてみてよ。俺はちょっと要注意に感じるけどな、その死守同盟。
彼、村人とうまく接触できたって連絡してきました。現地の警察とも連携できてるみたいですね。
赤坂君との連絡密にしてください。それで彼からの情報が引っかかるようであれば、増援を送ることもありということで。
Yeah, bro, he's gonna need them.
わかりました。あ、すいません、片岡市長。局長からお電話です。こっちに回しますか。
ああ、いい、そっち行きます。もしもし。
Let me double check.
あ、すいません、片岡市長。局長からお電話です。こっちに回しますか。
No, I'm not hearing Kantaku in there, so I do not believe that is referring to the same director. Okay, so yeah, like I said, it basically seems like that was just telling us that the Guardians are on the radar of the Public Safety Division, but they can't really help right now. Yeah, but they know they might have to send reinforcements, right, at some point. Let me go back up a bit, and we're gonna just ignore, yeah, whatever deep, thought-provoking thing they're about to give me. We're ignoring for now while I go back through the beginning of this. Okay, so the construction minister is like openly uncomfortable with public safety right now. Okay. And that the director is going to try to address it, but then they might ask for proof that they're being threatened. Sometimes I don't know what side he's on. If he's not on ours, then what? I assume they're talking about, what, the director? Or do they... I think they mean the vice minister. No, wrong. They mean the director, because they're talking about while he sweats it out in the vice minister's office and buys us some time. So whoever this director is, that does not seem to be Kantaku. Like, the very same, at least, right? Seems to... I guess... What? Loyalty is maybe questionable? Interesting. Okay, so that's another thing to keep in mind. And then everything else is like as I said it. Now let's get to presumably some deep monologue from the perspective of who I believe is the antagonist. Do you believe that there are choices in life? There are many people who lament the following. If there only existed points in life where there were clear choices to make, we would be better able to scrutinize those carefully and make decisions that would lead us to a better future. Every time I hear people lament as such, I cast it off as a rather trivial worry. Even if you were given a clear choice, it wouldn't be meaningful at all, and there wouldn't be any such path to a better future. Is this hard to understand? Then let's pretend that in front of you there are two strange boxes. In other words, you have two clear choices. Do you open the red box or the blue box? A lot of things would be uncertain even with that choice, wouldn't they? If you don't have the option of opening neither, then your choice boils down to the natural impulse of opening the box that holds the better result for you. Then, after examining the shape and features of each, and pondering a great many things, you have to pick either the red or the blue. If this was you, which box would you open? Red or blue? If you were to go by their traditional meanings, then red would be a dangerous, threatening color. However, that doesn't automatically mean that it would be calm and relaxing inside the blue box either. In fact, it might even be that the colors are a trap, make you wary of the red box and have you open the blue. A trap? Could it be the contents of the box aren't a reward, but rather a penalty? See? Now you're at a loss. You're so conflicted over the choice between red and blue that you've started wishing there was an option to open neither and just leave. But there isn't. You have to open either the red box or the blue box. Oh, I forgot to say this, but if you choose one box, the other will disappear. So you'll never know the contents of the box you don't open. I'll just put that rule at the end there for you. Now, why don't you choose? The red box or the blue box? It's alright. You won't lose anything by picking either one. Come on now. Alright, I guess just for the sake of choosing, I'll go red, just because I like the color red more. I'm guessing this choice does not matter. Because I'm pretty sure I put on the highlight important choices thing, but just in case... Oh, I can't save right now. Now that's a little goofy. Can I quick save at least? I can, I think. Alright. Open the red, I guess. Have you thought about it? In the end, you chose this color, didn't you? As soon as you chose, the other box disappeared. So you can give up on the contents of that one, okay? That's the rule. Now, open up the box you chose. Inside the box, there was a piece of caramel. I know you're a little disappointed. Well, that's only natural. No matter how you look at it, it looks like you drew the dud. The correct box might have had a bar of chocolate in it, for all you know. No, in fact, something incredible like a pair of tickets to Hawaii might have been in there. But even if you wanted to verify that, the other box has already disappeared. There's no way you can check now. But if you think about it from an optimistic point of view, just maybe, the other box was empty, and this box was the winner. And being satisfied, or perhaps not, with such a cheap prize, you pop it into your mouth and start chewing it happily. So what do you think in the end? If you were given a second chance, would you try to open the other box? But unfortunately, the chance to choose between the red box or the blue box has come and gone, never to be seen again. The chance to change your selection will never come. Don't your parents often say, every choice you make in life only happens once, so choose carefully? See? Choices aren't that great after all. Aren't you a little disillusioned now? Okay. That's interesting. What to make of that one? I mean, there's the pretty obvious, like straight up what they tell us they mean, right? Like, you know, you gotta make choices. You can't go back on them. And once you make a choice, there's no unmaking that choice, right? You don't know what the other choice had. Like, you'll never know, right? It might have had something better. It might have had nothing. It might have had something actively bad, right? And so isn't the concept of choosing like what's so good about it, right? That's an interesting way to think. I mean, it kind of sounds like I don't know that I'd necessarily say that they're opposed to the idea of free will in general, but like that almost is where I would go with that, if that makes sense, right? These ones, I'm absolutely going to have to watch all of these at least one more time. So right now, I'm not gonna dwell on it too much because I'm absolutely going to try to dwell on it later. So far they've all had their pretty obvious meaning, but I can't help but feel like there's some deeper meanings in there that probably relate to the story more directly, if that makes sense. But let's go ahead and look at the last tip for now. The glint in the demon's eye. So what is this going to be about, Mion?
はい。 それでお通夜が明日の午後6時からになりまして、告別式があさってのお昼、会場は沖宮セレモニーホールになります。
か。池澤助役のお孫さんの葬式じゃ、何にも挨拶なしってわけにもいかんね。みよ、代わりに出てえな。
うん、了解。喪服で行く？香典はいくらくらい？
学校の服でえんね。前のボタンちゃんと止めてくんねよ。香典は5万。10万包んだれな。世話になったかんな。
It's a lot of money. Mion quietly whistled in awe at the exorbitant amount of money her grandmother was offering.
池澤さんはな、沖宮の事務所長だった頃から、しっかりした人だったんね。役人は挨拶って言っても、絶対に玄関までしか来ん。でもな、池澤さんはわしがお茶を勧めると、いっつも上がってくれて、ちゃんと話を聞いてくれた。人の話を最後まで聞く。本当に鏡みたいな人だったんね。
Sounds to me like they have the mayor in their pocket. The two guests made a show of nodding, making it clear they were paying attention as Oryu reminisced. The sight of them trying not to get on Oryu's bad side was humorous enough to elicit laughter from Mion occasionally.
で、池澤助役のお孫さんはいくつで亡くなったんね。
11歳だそうで。
Oryu closed her eyes and shook her head lightly, lamenting the loss of such a young life.
確か、孫は一人だ言うてんな。親より先に死ぬほどの親不幸はあるめな。
ばっちゃんも他人には優しいね。私やシオンが死んだら同じように悲しんでくれる？
アホ抜かすんでね。演技でもねすったなんと。しゃらーったく。
That's true. Having got the reaction she expected, Mion cackled. The two guests, unsure if they were supposed to laugh along, instead forced awkward smiles.
それでは本日は失礼いたします。では明日の夕方5時にお迎えに参りますんで、よろしくお願いいたします。ではごめんくださいませ。
After bowing their heads respectfully, the guests left by the front door. Mion saw them off, waving her little hand goodbye.
帰ったよ。お役人もばっちゃのご機嫌伺いに大変だね。不法なんか電話でいいと思うのにね。
Well, it was true that Oryu Sonozaki was a central person for both her relatives and the residents of Hinamizawa village as a whole. As a voting bloc, they numbered in the several thousands. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayor would try to pander to her. Unlike Mion, however, Oryu was looking up longingly at the sky from the veranda.
どうしたの？猛録した？
Well, that sounds kind of similar to what we saw in that in the tip from last chapter.
誰のお孫さんであろうと。気の毒だのう思ったんよ。
Sounds to me like Oryu genuinely doesn't care for this business of kidnapping the minister's grandson. Saying that, she let out a deep sigh. Mion was let down, as normally her grandmother would have scolded her for her attitude.
みよ。これ、例の大臣の孫。さらわれてからどのくらいになる？
4日かな。
Oryu let out another deep sigh.
旧敵の孫とはいえ、気の毒だな。
そう。
十分気はせいだろ。そろそろ終わりにしちゃれな。
Why do I feel like Mion's gonna be the one that doesn't want this, to end that? The playful expression drained from Mion's face, leaving behind a stern one. And then, as if to ascertain Oryu's will, looked into her eyes. Oryu, expressing her intentions with only those eyes, looked back into Mion's.
お茶が欲しいんで頼んでな。さっきのチョコレートも食べといね。
Mion gave a small nod, then turned around.
シミコさん、いますか？ばっちゃに紅茶入れてあげてください。
From far away, a voice responded in the affirmative. Mion, after confirming she'd been heard, picked up the phone and began dialing.
あ、もしもしミオンだけど。うん、うちのお父さん、います。
What, is she gonna... I don't know, maybe get the grandchild taken care of? I'm a little surprised by this one. It seemed like Oryu... I don't know, like, in the meeting, it seemed like Oryu was, like, not necessarily, like, didn't seriously hate this idea, right, of, like, if they want to take from us, like, you know, the, like, something we view as family, we'll take their family. But, like, in private, it seems like she really doesn't care for the idea. Makes me wonder how many general misconceptions I have about Oryu, right? I don't know, let me go back to this, but it almost felt like Mion
はい。
didn't
それ
feel
で
the same way.
お通夜が明日の午後6時からになりまして、
Yeah, Mion doesn't
告別式があさってのお昼、
really...
12時から13時までになりまして、
She doesn't really seem to feel the same way to me, honestly. Right? She doesn't seem to feel as bad. But then right there at the end, she's calling her father. Maybe she's trying to, like I said, get this resolved, right? Let the kid get to safety. Which is interesting. So I guess maybe if, like, suddenly the kid is let go, maybe we have an explanation for why. That's interesting. Honestly, it kind of shifts my perspective on Oryu a little bit. It just makes me wonder how much of the doings with the Sonozaki family is actually her, right? Or maybe not actually her, but I mean, like, they kind of implied that it's kind of like if she implies that there's a problem that needs taken care of, someone will just take care of it, right? And maybe they don't, like, if she doesn't explicitly say what she needs done, maybe she thinks, like, this was not the solution she was going for this problem. Which is interesting. I don't know. I assumed she was a lot more... I don't want to say resolved than that, because she still has a lot of resolve, right? But, I don't know. Maybe cruel is just the word I was looking for. She doesn't seem as cruel as I had thought. I don't know. Maybe she still is, but... I mean, it's called The Glint in the Demon's Eye. I kind of feel like this is also showing off that Mion might be that cruel. I don't know. I am... That one's... Yeah, that one changes things for me a bit. I'll have to keep that in mind in the future. But anyways, let's talk about this episode as a whole now. Right? This was a pretty good one. So the first 30 minutes or so was kind of fluff, right? With Akasaka playing mahjong with Ooshi, the construction foreman, who was, I mean, like, referred to as Kantaku, I do believe, right? And Sato, the source. So, I mean, that's some major players, right? Like, those are some really important people. I don't think the scene itself was so important, rather than the idea that they've all connected in some way. They all know each other, right? The foreman ended up explicitly asking things too, like, hey, like, when are you going to get this situation under control, right? Which, I mean, is not a weird question to ask, but it seems like they've had plenty of prior contact. And so, I don't know, like, there's just, Ooshi is really the one that I'm trying to figure out where his loyalties lie. Like, in truth, I'm trying to figure out where his loyalties really lie. I don't know that I can make a call right now, but, like, he's simultaneously pretty suspicious, but I also really do want to believe in him, and especially, I don't know, it's like, well, I guess he could still be, like, kind of a mole and giving people bad information, working for Hinamizawa, and still interact with the, you know, the damn site, like, foreman. So I guess that them knowing each other doesn't really prove anything of his innocence. So, but I think it's important to know that they all have prior contact. But then beyond that is where things get really spicy, because we hear about the family council, in Hinamizawa, with the Sonozakis as well as the other two major families, but mainly the Sonozakis, if we're being real. They talked about three major things, I believe. The first one was raising the price on the bulletins, which they were using to fund basically bribes to the mass media, it would seem. Which, I mean, is a good plan, right? And they can't deny the results, and that's why they're trying to keep it going, even though they don't really have the funds for it, and that's why they're raising the prices. The Furude family and the Kimiyoshi family both seem to object, and they basically just got overruled by the Sonozakis, right? Specifically Oryu and Mion. Just were like, nope, prices are being raised. Because who's going to be the first family to buckle, right? Which poor family is going to be the one that stops paying it first, right? Probably going to be made an example of whoever does that. Everyone knows that it's an expectation that you do this, right? And so I think that could definitely create some tension within Hinamizawa, which we might kind of see come to play. Like I said, we know that the Hojo family in particular was really not huge on the dam project and led the resistance, or led the movement for it. For financial reasons for their family. And I mean, that might be part of it, right? To continue to support the anti-dam movement is to continue paying lots of money for these bulletins, right? That they just might not be able to afford. The next topic of conversation was they knew about the kidnapping, right? Which they should not have known about. The fact that they know about it kind of indicates one of two things. Either they are directly involved, which I think is very likely, or that there's a mole, which I still think is likely, to be honest. I think both things are quite possibly true. I still think, based on what I've seen, it seemed like the Sonozaki family did it. If we look at the tips, right, what was it? It would have been this one, right?
ああ、お疲れ。今あげる。カップラーメン買ってきちゃう。ん？ずっと寝てる。
I thought this was the voice that I recognized. I'm not 100% sure, looking back on it, but because I don't remember the voice from earlier, but
手がかからなくて助かるよ。
I'll have to maybe compare these later, but in the moment it sounded to me like this was the same voice as one of the people talking about whispering in whispering in Mion's ear during the kidnapping part of the meeting. And so that would certainly imply it's the Sonozakis, but there's already been other things implying it's the Sonozakis, right in here, which is obviously the kidnapping, when they talk about the main family said don't hurt a hair on their head, right? And I mean, frankly, this seemed like it was before the meeting, kind of had to be, given that this was literally the kidnapping. So it seemed to me like there was some kind of order given out, probably by Mion's father. I don't know, maybe even Mion herself, if I'm going to be so bold, right? That basically was along the lines of kidnap this kid and do not harm him, right? I don't know. It almost sounds like that order wouldn't have come from Oryu is the thing, right? But it came from the main family, right? And I mean, I know what Mion is part of the main family. Man, interesting. I don't know. It might have legit been Mion that gave that order. Actually, it might have been. That's kind of a disturbing thought that it was Mion. But very possible it could have just been the father as well. I don't know if he's considered part of the main family, though. Like, genuinely, I don't really have a clue. I assume it was one of those two. That's the point, though, right? But even if it wasn't, they still, like... I mean, like, if it was, that would explain why they know about it. If it wasn't them, then they still know about it, and so there's a mole. Like, one of those two things kind of has to be true. But then, moving on just from that, we move on to the bit with... They know Akasaka is here, right? And that he's a metropolitan, like, public safety officer, right? And they know he's here. His cover was already blown, and Rika was really interested in the public safety officer that she didn't know of. Like, she didn't know at the time, and she was waiting at the place that he stopped at, right? So it seems to me, right, and to Akasaka, and his cover was already blown, and that Rika, in particular, holds an interest in him for unknown reasons, because she is very mysterious right now, for sure. I mean, a lot of it comes back to that scene last episode, but why would she be so interested in that? Like, why would she be so interested in a public safety officer? I don't know. A lot of good questions were raised in this video, and I think there are definitely some answers. I don't think I've fully discerned all of them, but I think we're gonna, like, this is one that we'll probably be, like, look back at later, and things, like, it will help explain things, right? Like, I could see this episode having several things that I point at and be like, this is why I think that thing, right? Fascinating stuff. This was a good episode. Lots of intrigue. And I mean, this was the same day that Akasaka met everyone in the town. So we're going to see what happens tomorrow, because now he knows his cover is blown, right? But he still needs to keep investigating. I don't think he's going to call it off, right? But he's been warned to leave. Is something going to happen to him? Oryu's basically said don't harm him, right? At least for now, right? Is he going to do something that gets himself harmed? I don't know. I'm really interested to see where this goes, like I said. So I'll be recording again tomorrow, like at the latest. That'll be it for this episode for now. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. Like I said, I know I have. This was a great episode, right? I know I say that after like every episode, right? It's not often that I say an episode was like mid or something, but this was a good episode, like seriously. The fluff was kind of minimized, and it was just a lot of like information after information that in the moment, it's like a lot of it I'm like, okay, it's giving me some ideas, and I think I'm looking back on it, it's still going to be very important, like this episode in particular. So this was a good one. This was really a good one. I hope you guys are looking forward to the next episode. I know I am. Like I said, I'll be recording it tomorrow, so you can expect it reasonably soon after this video is uploaded. I don't know the schedule that I'm going to record at right now, but like I said, reasonably soon. But until that video comes out, peace.